Y'all will never gaslight me into believing that Kim Kardashian was a bad wife to him and that she's the reason that he ended up the way that he is now. I don't think Kanye ever had good intentions for Kim Kardashian. I feel like he became so fixated on her beauty and the status that she was able to obtain without having a talent per se.
You guys, we seriously need to talk about Kanye West because this new documentary about his life has the internet losing its mind. The man is wildin' out. There's a viral clip of him straight up yelling at Kris Jenner, and people are calling it one of his most unhinged moments ever. What's crazy is that, for once, folks are actually siding with the Kardashians. Yeah, you heard that right. It's not something you hear every day, but this documentary is flipping the script big time. The film, titled In Whose Name and directed by Nico Ballesteros, digs deep into Kanye's life and career, starting from the early cracks in his public image. It opens with the chaos that followed his canceled tour with Lady Gaga right after that infamous Taylor Swift VMA moment. You remember? When he jumped on stage, grabbed the mic, and interrupted her acceptance speech? That one move turned the whole industry upside down and had everybody talking for years. The film revisits that moment as the spark that started Kanye's long, complicated dance with controversy. Even though he and Taylor tried to squash the beef years later, it never really stuck. The tension stayed, and the world never forgot. That VMA night wasn't just a scandal. It was a preview of how Kanye's own outbursts would keep haunting his career over and over again. Then the documentary jumps forward, and that's when things get heavy. Kanye talks about being off his meds for months, telling Kim that he's on some kind of divine mission. It's intense to watch because he seems totally convinced he's being guided by something bigger than himself. Throughout the whole thing, he keeps circling back to his 2016 hospitalization, the one that came right after he suddenly canceled the rest of his St. Pablo tour. Even though we don't see the actual footage of his breakdown, it looms over the entire documentary like a shadow. It's clear Kanye still sees that moment as the turning point, the moment where fame, pressure, and his own mind collided in the messiest way possible. The documentary dives deep into how all this chaos tore Kanye's world apart, especially his bond with his family. It's like the more he clashed with the industry and the press, the more isolated he became. He started seeing everyone as part of a system that twisted his words and painted him as the villain. And honestly, after watching those scenes, you can feel that paranoia sitting heavy on him.
As a person that used to love Kanye and I used to argue people down about how he was just misunderstood and y'all just don't get it, y'all taking it out of context, I used to sound just like the MAGA people be sounding about Trump. But I say all of this to say y'all will never gaslight me into believing that Kim Kardashian was a bad wife to him and that she's the reason that he ended up the way that he is now. I don't think Kanye ever had good intentions for Kim Kardashian. I feel like he became so fixated on her beauty and the status that she was able to obtain without having a talent per se. And I feel like he got with her because he wanted to control and belittle her. And once she wasn't letting that happen no more, that's when he really started airing out shit. I feel like she could have been exposed Kanye for who he truly is a long time ago, but she always kept it quiet about him.
Then comes the wildest part, his so-called political awakening. The film doesn't hold back when it gets to 2018, the year Kanye showed up wearing that red Trump hat, standing 10 toes down on Saturday Night Live with a full-on pro-Trump speech. He said the show's crew tried to stop him from wearing it, tried to silence him before he even walked out. But Kanye being Kanye, he doubled down and said, "Nah, I'm doing this my way." He went off about how black public figures like Bill Cosby always end up being mocked by black comedians, throwing out lines that hit nerves all over the set. SNL cast member Michael Che, who thought the comment was aimed at him, wasn't having it. After the show, Michael confronted him backstage, straight up asking, "Why'd you call us out like that on live TV when we couldn't even respond?" The tension was thick. Cameras caught the moment, but you can tell the energy was off. Kanye kept saying his issue wasn't personal, that it wasn't about Michael. It was about SNL and what he saw as control. Things got so heated that someone had to step in and tell the cameras to stop rolling. In the documentary, Kanye explains that the hat wasn't about politics. It was about freedom. He said wearing it was his way of fighting control and doing what everyone told him not to do. But at the same time, he admits politics scared him, that stepping into that world made him feel unsafe. He even confessed that when he visited the White House, he told staff he needed to be inside for protection because, in his words, "Every time I wear this hat, my life's in danger." The documentary doesn't shy away from the emotional chaos either. It shows Kanye straight up blaming the Kardashians for his mental breakdowns. There's this heartbreaking moment where Kris Jenner is seen in tears, begging him to take his medication and get help. But Kanye, in full resistance mode, snaps back saying he'd rather be dead than medicated. It's shocking to watch, and the tension between them feels painfully real. He then pushes Kris to admit that the Kardashian-Jenner family had something to do with his mental health struggles, saying they refused to take responsibility for how their fame machine affected him. You can see the pain and frustration in his eyes, like he's desperate for someone to just acknowledge the damage. Kris, through tears, finally says that yes, they did play a part in his stress. But she tries to reason with him. She tells him that what strangers online say doesn't matter, that what counts is what the people closest to him think. She reassures him that she loves him and says all she's ever wanted is for him to be okay, and for Kim to love him the way he wants to be loved. It's raw, emotional, and uncomfortable to watch because both sides clearly care, but they're on totally different frequencies. Then the film cuts to their family trip to Uganda, a scene that feels like the calm after a storm, but not for long. Kim is sitting there surrounded by people who genuinely care about Kanye, and they're all pleading with him to listen. One person even says, "You weren't like this a couple years ago," and the sadness in that moment is heavy.
The Kanye West documentary cannot be doing what Kanye assumed it would do. Because tell me why I sit here just feeling bad for Kim Kardashian. There's an episode of Keeping Up with a Kardashian where Kim said that staying calm has always been her superpower. And I'm starting to think that was something she learned, not only from the Paris robberies, but from Kanye. Because the way that man reacts as soon as he is told no is worse than a 5-year-old.
Kim breaks down while trying to reason with him, telling him he needs to learn to accept hearing the word no. She explains that people tell her no all the time, and she doesn't explode over it. You can feel how drained she is, trying to get through to him while also protecting what's left of their peace. By the end of that trip, something clearly shifts. Kanye starts to fall back from politics, almost retreating into himself. The doc shows how paranoia started creeping in stronger than ever, making him question everyone and everything around him. Even during that Uganda trip, Kanye's paranoia didn't let up. He was convinced his safety was at risk, even surrounded by family and friends. But for a brief moment, things looked calm. He and Kim actually renewed their vows, promising to stand by each other no matter what. That's when Kanye entered his Sunday service phase. The gospel music, the all-white robes, the preaching. He was presenting himself as reborn, grounded, and deeply devoted to faith. For a while, it looked like a real redemption arc. But then came 2020 and everything flipped again. Out of nowhere, Kanye announced he was running for president, and that campaign became one of the wildest chapters of his life. Around the same time, he was obsessed with creating this new Yeezy world in Wyoming, a futuristic space focused on sustainability, fashion, and architecture. He wanted to build his own version of paradise, but behind the scenes, the chaos never stopped. His online behavior got more unpredictable by the day. Wild statements, emotional rants, and political takes that had fans saying, "What is happening?" People started questioning if they could even support him anymore. Things hit a breaking point when Kanye publicly said that he and Kim once considered not having their daughter North, a comment that shocked everyone and reportedly crushed Kim. Not long after that, the divorce papers came. Kim filed saying they just couldn't make it work anymore. The documentary paints this picture of a man who truly believed he was untouchable. Kanye spoke like someone who thought the rules didn't apply to him, especially when it came to his business empire. He bragged about how much money he made Adidas, saying things like they could never afford to lose him. He believed he was the brand, that they needed him more than he needed them. But reality hit hard. When his anti-Semitic remarks surfaced, Adidas didn't hesitate. They cut ties completely. Instead of stepping back or apologizing, Kanye went even further, doubling down on his behavior. The film captures his most controversial moment yet, showing him proudly wearing White Lives Matter shirts, completely refusing to acknowledge the harm and outrage his words caused. It's that moment where you can see the man who once called himself a genius might have finally gone too far. At this point in the documentary, it's painfully clear. Kanye has burned almost every bridge in the industry. No one wants to work with him anymore. Major promoters like Live Nation and AEG have reportedly refused to book him for shows, and even the Sphere in Las Vegas, the same venue every artist dreams of performing at, turned him down flat. That's how toxic his name has become in the business. Throughout the film, you see Kanye struggling to even explain his own story. He keeps circling around the same questions. What does he stand for? What's the message? What's the truth? But every time he starts talking about his mental health, things get defensive real quick. He rants that the media only wants to label him bipolar, that they twist everything he does into some medical episode. Instead, he insists people just don't get him, that he's misunderstood, that going off his meds makes him more himself, not worse. He pushes the idea that his outbursts aren't breakdowns, they're art, politics, or divine expression. It's like he's rewriting reality in real time, refusing to let anyone else define what's happening. But watching it play out, it's impossible to ignore the disconnect. The line between genius and self-destruction is getting blurrier by the minute. You can see how desperate he is to control his own narrative. He wants to be seen as a visionary, not a victim. But at the same time, he's trapped, boxed in by his own choices and unwilling to take real advice from anyone close to him. That stubbornness, that refusal to listen, becomes one of the film's saddest truths. And when it comes to Kim, it's heartbreaking. The Kardashians might not be everyone's favorite family, but even Kanye's harshest critics admit Kim stood by him through things most people would have walked away from. She tried to love him through the storms, through the chaos, through the moments when he was pushing everyone away. Watching that play out on screen hits different, because it shows just how far gone he really was, even with someone still trying to hold him down. In the end, Kanye makes it clear. He believes he's more himself when he's off his medication, and he only wants people around him who understand his purpose on this earth. It's like he's built his own world where only his truth matters, no matter how wild it sounds. But for longtime fans, it's heartbreaking to watch. People who once idolized him are now saying they can't recognize the man they supported for years. Even folks like Michael Che, who admitted to being a fan, have said they can't stand by what things have turned into. By the final scenes of the documentary, Kanye almost seems at peace. Not because he's healed, but because he's accepted the chaos. He's lost partnerships, family, respect, and millions of fans, yet he still carries himself like it's all part of a bigger plan. It's chilling, honestly, to see someone so aware of their downfall, but still okay with it. The film closes on a bittersweet note. Kanye reflects on everything he's lost, but he doesn't look broken. Instead, he looks settled, like he's chosen to live on his own terms, even if it costs him everything. It's powerful, sad, and frustrating all at once. So, what do you think about all this? Do you think Kanye's just misunderstood, or has he gone too far to come back? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm dying to hear where you stand. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more wild celebrity drama. And make sure you watch the next video that's popping up on your screen, because the next story is even messier than this one. See you there.